This intro is based on true events. Viewer discretion is advised.
And that should be it.
Is it ready yet? I sensed the smell of progress from the living room.
Yes, I think.
What do you mean, you think?
Well, I've got it hooked up hardware-wise, but...
Don't tell me my computer crashed again.
No.
Did the graphics card pack it in again?
No.
Did Windows decide to do an update, so reset all the fan settings on the graphics card, causing it to overheat again?
No. I just haven't tested it yet.
Oh, come on, get out of the way, and then maybe I can
Would you
try
just
doing something
let me
like...
get-
Come on, just
Hey,
move.
hang on.
Okay, so, what does this button do?
That turns it off and on again.
Oh, okay. What about this one?
That adjusts the sensitivity.
Oh, why do I still hear fuzzing noise in the background? Oh my gods, I do not need this. I literally don't have the time this week to figure out all this new hardware. I've got my parents coming down, I've got chapter 3 to finish, I've got birthdays I need to go to, I've got the callback from the...
I'll ask Eldurrino. I'm sure he knows what the problem is. Ah. He says it's because you've got the wrong input on Audacity. Look, change this. And... now try.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Imperial. Hey, that's better. Oh my god, thank Freya that worked. I'm so glad that I did not go on a Ren Panic special over this, spiraling into losing my shit completely, and instead handled this like a truly functioning adult. Well, now that that's all sorted, I think it's just about time for podcast. Do you think everyone's gonna like my new mic?
I'm sure they will. Now, breathe.
I'll breathe when I'm dead. Anyway, best we go on with the podcast now. And remember, everyone, do not panic when hardware doesn't seem to work first time.
And remember to take a deep breath, because at the end of the day, it's not as bad as it seems.
Anyway, on with the show, I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everybody. That intro is from Renara, who is unfortunately not with us, so we will not get to enjoy the new microphone until hopefully next week. So, Eldurrino, was this actually, did they reach out to you about something? And no, okay.
Well, yes. I mean, Renara and I spoke about her mic issues because she, contrary to what she said, and was obviously laced with a lot of sarcasm, she was freaking out a lot. And I told her that the noise that she was hearing was normal. It comes with having a phantom-powered mic. So, yeah, the noise that she was hearing is totally acceptable, and that in Audacity it was just using the wrong input. So that's cool that she told that story, because it was wildly different.
Gotcha. Well, welcome everybody. For those of you that are here live, thank you for being here or watching us on YouTube or getting us anywhere where you get your podcast. Welcome. This is ColdReadthePodcast. We're gonna do just our quick check-ins, and obviously, like we noted, Renara's not here. We have the rest in peace, meaning she's hopefully resting away from the show, not in any other way. Sorry, Renara, if you're watching. So let's go counterclockwise from Renara. So Birnam, how has your week been? Thanks for being here.
Hi, no problem. I'm wondering, can you rest not in peace? Is it not being in
Yes.
peace?
Yes, you can.
Called having anxiety.
Yeah, that's true enough. But hey, yeah, I'm doing okay. My kid is trying to take a nap next door, so I'm keeping it. You've got NPR Birnam for for the next little while.
Nice.
So yeah, things have been generally busy, but yeah, I'm having a good weekend.
Let me ask, because we haven't checked in a while on your voice acting stuff. Anything new? Any good auditions?
I submitted an audition last week, I think. Nothing came of it, but
Gotcha.
it was still fun to do. I've been following some voice actors on TikTok and gearing up to do some of these voice acting challenges that we were talking about a few weeks ago. And yeah, kind of putting a lot of energy in there, just checking into Casting Call Club every now and again to see if there's anything new and interesting.
Gotcha. Well, good. It's good. Glad to see you back. I guess I'll go next because I'm next in the anti-clockwise, and we'll talk to Eldurrino and then finally our guest at the end. So it's super busy week between the Killer Case Files / Survivor Chronicles on TikTok are doing well. I got 3 technically voices.com jobs at the same time. I got called back for the Escape the Algorithm, which is the YouTube little series that's been going on. Super happy about that. And then somebody from a Japanese podcast asked me to do some voiceovers for movie reviews. So that was interesting. I'm waiting to hear back because there's a lot of pronunciation when it comes to names, and I'm hoping that I got them right. But at the same time, I'm waiting to hear. And one of the reasons I woke up at 5 a.m. is because they're on the other side of the world, and I was waiting to hear something in case they needed to do pickups because I only record certain days of the week. Yeah. I got shortlisted for Amazon commercial for dubbing for Spanish, so super happy about that. Hopefully something will come up out of it. So we're still waiting to hear. Otherwise, work is a pain as usual. Super busy. I've got next week is my wife's birthday. We're going to be heading up to local area San Diego, some casinos, and be spending a couple days there and just going to enjoy our time. So away from technology, away from everything else. It'll be an interesting couple of days off.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you, Eldurrino? How are you doing?
Oh boy. Well, I've been gone for the past few weeks. So the first week I was gone, I went to go to a wedding with my girlfriend for her brother, which was great. It was quite a bit of fun. During that time, we also got to meet our dear friend Pashley and B. Liddy, otherwise known as Brian. And so so that was fun. We just went bowling with them and played some pool and just hung out and just palled around. So they were a lot of fun. Really enjoyed meeting up with them for the first time. So definitely going to do that again. We're already discussing trying to find like a karaoke bar to go hang out at some point. So that happened, and then after that, the Wednesday following that weekend, me and my girlfriend drove to the Midwest, back to my home, because my sister's wedding was coming up, and so we went there. Had a blast. It was a very, very good time. Very good wedding. Their DJ was freaking killer. Like the best DJ I've ever seen at a wedding before.
Out of curiosity, was this a themed wedding? Because I saw you in a suit and I think a payday mask.
No.
Okay.
No, that was. I'll cover that here in a second.
All right, cool. I was curious.
So, no, the DJ though was very cool. He was very like theatrical, as to like how everything was done. He was very, very, very good. But yeah, no, wedding overall was very, very fun. Had a blast. The only drawback to it was just the long drive of 18 hours each way. So, and it wasn't as bad. Like Meg and I have made the trip by ourselves before, but doing it together this time was a bit better because we could trade off shifts. But either way, it was still horrible. Neither of us can sleep in cars, so we had to stay awake that entire time. So, the drawback to it, though, or actually, hold on, before I get to that, the payday mask, as was posted on my Twitter, a while back, I was part of a charity event for Overkill, and Eric Adabari, the face model for one of the characters in there, Dallas, he was helping out with that, and so I donated the second highest amount, and so he sent me like a bunch of signed stuff, including one of the masks that had his signature on it. And when I went back to my parents, they had found it for me.
Nice.
And so I was like, I'm putting on a suit. I'm going to put on this mask real quick, just as they do in the game. And so I took a picture of it and tagged him in it, and he retweeted it. So that was funny.
Nice.
in any case, the drawback to all of this is soon after I returned, Meg and I both got diagnosed with COVID. So we're currently trying to fight that off. It's not as bad as like some of the other folks that have gotten it have been. But I will say it is very strange not to be able to smell things. And I don't mean like I'm congested. I just mean I don't have any sense of smell right now. I took a bottle of my Carolina Reaper hot sauce and put it underneath my nose and it had no effect on me whatsoever.
Holy mackerel.
So that was weird. Taste is still there a little bit. It's like I've been testing it regularly just by putting like sour candies in my mouth, and it's still there, but it's, yeah, hopefully it won't go away completely, because not being able to taste food really sucks.
I bet.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Voice acting I have done absolutely none of, because I knew I was going to be gone a lot the past couple of weeks, so I didn't want to sign up for anything and then get cast for it and yada yada. But to round it all off, I did bring back all of my guitars from my house, or my parents' house rather.
Okay.
That being 4 guitars that are in this closet behind me. And so I am very excited once I get over this illness to continue working on this rock opera and blowing everybody's minds and or pants away.
I'll keep my pants on, thank you very much, but blowing mine sounds interesting.
As if you have a choice.
Fair enough. Well, welcome back. We missed you for the last couple of weeks, and we had last week off, but we missed you for the one before. So hopefully we're talking about getting Crown Stag back on, because he was a great, because I know Renara had a ball talking to him, so we'll discuss that on the side. But in the meantime, Connor, hello.
Hello.
Sorry, Conrad, I apologize. How you doing?
They're both fine. Whichever one you want. I'm doing well, thank you. This is a fun opportunity. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be chilling out with you fine folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to be our guest today. We're going to talk a little bit about your experience, your multiple experience, but just so the veil is lifted, we were looking to you to bring you in as one of the replacement hosts for the show. So
yeah.
Thanks for letting us talk to you and interview you and everything to that effect. Hopefully moving forward we can, because we like having certain backups in case one of us has to not be here or anything. Sure. So we'd love to have you as one of those. I'm going to officially invite you to that.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'd love to.
So talk to us about, first off, let's start with how did you start with voice acting?
Well, it was an interesting set of circumstances a couple of years ago. It was funny how I think in 2019, like late 2019, I had started talking to myself about, this is something you've wanted to try and do for years. Most of my 20s, I had this idea in the back of my head, like, you like performing. You were in drama club in high school. You did like sketch groups and improv comedy stuff in high school. You did all those workshops when you were younger. And then college, you got away from performing in general. But like now that you're on your own, you're working adult, like you have some free time, you should look into that. And like, if I never thought of myself as an on-camera guy, I'm not like a stage or camera actor at all. I never really thought of myself as that. But I thought, like, what if I can just develop my voice and like, just it had been there in the back of my head for years. But then in late 2019, I thought, you're about to turn 30. You need to get serious about this. If you want to do it, start doing some research, figure out how to do it. And so it was hard at first. Like, how do I get started? What are the steps? What do I do? And so what happened was then, my day job stuff, my career stuff was kind of tumultuous at the time too. Like that was all really stressful and not very solid for a little while. But then early 2020, I got a new job that I liked at the time. It was a good gig. And I was like, all right, this feels good. And now that I'm getting more stable, I started talking to some people. I actually, got on some message boards. I got on like the voiceover subreddit. I started talking to people who I knew who did it and just got some advice. And one of the things that I was told that stuck out to me was like, look for a coach if you can. Coaches are a great way to get some foundation under you, get some direction. And I thought, yes, that's what I want. I need direction. I need, some, just some foundation there, the skill and all that. So 2020, I started this new job. It was March. And then the world basically ended. That's when everything shut down. Then suddenly I was working from home full time. I was doing this new job remotely from my house and couldn't really go anywhere, couldn't see anybody. So I was like, this is a great time to email that coach that I heard about. And so, yeah, I met my first voiceover coach around that time, March 2020. His name is Ron Allen. He actually owns his own kind of voiceover business down in Columbus, Ohio. I'm from Ohio. I've lived in Ohio my whole life.
Okay.
Cleveland, shout out, best city in the world. I live in Cleveland now. I'm sorry. But no, so I started working with my first coach in 2020. And that was like a 6-month program, basically, of just like going over everything. All the genres, all the stuff you need to know, what the business is like, what kind of equipment you need, just the basic fundamentals of, using your voice as a tool, as an instrument. And so that was just so eye-opening to me. That was such a transformative experience of like I said, getting that foundation of skill under me. And after that, when that was kind of progressing and then going into early 2021, it was like, okay, I'm on my own. I'm like off and running now. I'm like feeling ready to audition for things now. And then, so yeah, it was like a slow but steady process of, getting some confidence and figuring out how to look for the work and how to go after it. So yeah, I've been actively auditioning ever since then and working on a few things, making some connections. It's like that, that balance of like auditioning and marketing yourself and networking, training, like continuing your training. I've worked with a second coach. I'm actually with my second coach currently. Her name is Rachel Messer. She's out there. People, she's a known quantity. Not a household name necessarily, but no, a lot of people know of her, have worked with her. And actually I had a lesson with her earlier today just to work on, script interpretation stuff, the usual. But yeah, so it's continuing the training and doing the auditioning grind and stuff. So that's where I'm at now, and that's the long and short of how I got into it, I guess. Sorry, I will ramble if you let me. So
no, that's fine. We love rambling. Rambling is good. It works out well.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's our thing.
Yeah. So was it the coach that said, "Hey, watch this or go here to do your first scripts," or did you do the typical casting call club route or voiceover Discord?
Yeah. Yeah, my first coach definitely turned me on to kind of the bigger pay-to-play sites. He told me about VDC and Voices 123, and also like he kind of made it clear to me that like long term you want to get long term your goal should be to kind of cultivate your own client base, like people who have worked with you before in other circumstances, but you are now known to them and they will come to you with the work. You don't have to like pay a middleman or use a website to do that. So he made it very clear to me that's like the goal. And so that's, but to get there, yeah, you do have to kind of get a foundation on yourself, get bookings to your name in order to get there. So yeah, I was told about a casting call club from a friend, a buddy of mine that I also actually podcast with. He's part of the network that I'm a producer for. He's also a voice actor. He's been in like some pretty high profile stuff. He's been in some games here and there, but he was like, yeah, casting call club's great practice. Like it's a really great way to like get started. And that was my experience too. Like my first auditions ever were on casting call club, and I actually still continue to do some every now and then if I like, find a project I think is interesting. So yeah, no, definitely there. I think there's, voiceactingclub.com, just that, I looked at that a little bit too, but also like just Twitter, I got on Twitter. I didn't have a Twitter for many, many years. I was completely off of it for a long time. The entire time I was in college, my working life after that, I didn't have any interest in Twitter. I always thought like, what would I put on there? Like, what would I say? I have nothing to say. Like, I don't have enough inane thoughts that I need to share with people that you make use of a Twitter. But what happened was when I met, we can get into my podcasting later. I think we'll do that.
Yeah,
anyway.
we will.
But
absolutely.
Yeah. When I started podcasting a little bit more full time or more seriously, and like I met my current team that I'm with, I thought, what, Twitter would be nice just to promote the episodes I'm in, really, just to like have that presence at least. And then not long after that, it was like, oh, maybe I'll start getting into voice acting Twitter too. And that's been a whole other story, a whole other adventure of getting involved in voice acting Twitter, but which has been good generally. But like, yeah, coming back to it, that's another source of auditions that I found too. Like, you can just find casting calls on Twitter and kind of get out there that way. So yeah, over time, I've definitely learned that there's a lot of different directions that auditions will come to you from. Like, you just kind of have to cast a wide net and don't, rely too heavily on any one particular platform or avenue for finding the work. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I think in general it's good practice to try to just spread out those avenues where you can find that for sure. So I know one of our previous guests also talked about LinkedIn. I never thought of LinkedIn as using that as, I know it's for work, but I always think of it like for professionals, for office people. Never really thought about it for the voice acting side, but apparently because this person has a LinkedIn so high, they can just directly go to those casting managers like, oh, I got a new goal now.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I've heard that as well. Actually, I've had a LinkedIn for a long time. Like, I had one in college, and my day job, my main career is I'm kind of in writing and editing. I'm like in a marketing sort of industry these days, and that's what my LinkedIn is kind of geared towards. And so I've been struggling with, like, how do I repurpose my existing LinkedIn and sort of like add this voiceover component on top of it. But yeah, I have noticed that there are just companies that you can contact directly, like, hey, you produce e-learning modules. I'm an e-learning narrator. Like, you can just kind of introduce yourself directly, market directly that way, and network that way. So yeah, LinkedIn might be a sleeper hit in terms of, like, you could find work there if you know how to go after it. And how to use it.
So when you first started, because I mean, obviously, okay, so let's talk about the podcast. You've been doing podcasting for a lot longer than you have doing the voice acting, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go with that one. How long have you been in the voice in the podcasting? I'm not calling it business, but genre.
Yeah. Well, I guess it goes back to when I was in college. I went to Kent State University in Kent, Ohio. Wonderful little town, wonderful school. I loved my time there. Great journalism program, which worked out for me because that was my major. But yeah, while I was there, there's a student media program called Black Squirrel Radio. It's like their college radio station. It's, student run, student managed. I was a DJ for, I think, a total of 4 semesters. So basically 2 years, my junior and senior years.
Wow.
And yeah, so that kind of gave me a grounding in just running a show, like having a concept and like just being on air, engaging an audience, having a concept and following through on it. And I fell in love with it. I just fell in love with, like, you and the microphone and whoever's listening, and that's it. And like there's a beauty to it, the purity of just you're just riffing, you're just talking. And like, at Black Squirrel Radio, it was like a lot of music too, so it was more music than talk. But you could just shoot the shit with your audience, like between. Sorry, I don't know if we can curse here.
Yeah, we can totally curse.
No, you're fine.
Okay. You're perfectly fucking fine. Don't worry about it.
I feel like I'm on Fallon right now. Like, oh, can I swear? No,
it's okay. Because really, if we need it, because I can do that. But we're fine. We're fine.
All right, good to know. But yeah, it's like, I could, like, shoot the shit with the audience. I could just say whatever's on my mind between songs, like, between music breaks. But then when I graduated and I was like just thrown off into the real world, and I was a working stiff all of a sudden, living in my shitty cracked in apartment, just with, like, my job I hated that didn't pay enough, and like, oh man, I wish I had something to do at night with friends, to like just do something creative. And yeah, buddies of mine from college, they actually kind of, like, I met them through the radio thing. They like approached me like, hey man, we want to like start a podcast. And I was like, I think this was back when, this was like 2012 maybe.
Wow. Okay.
So this is back when podcasts weren't really big yet. You know what I mean? Like they were sort of an experimental medium of not really radio, not really. It was like it was a pioneered sort of thing. Like, what are they? What are podcasts? But like friends of mine were like, yeah, man, we want to make a podcast network. And I was like, hell yeah, brother, sign me up. That sounds great. And I basically tried to like recreate what I did at the college radio station just on my own, but like it was more talk oriented. It was less about music and more about talk. So like it was bad, man. Like looking back, like, but no, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
but like where I started it was so, I cringe thinking about it. Like I had this, Lenovo laptop that, just barely got me through college, and it was on its last legs. And I was like, I figured out how to use OBS, and I was literally just talking into my headset mic, my USB headset mic, and capturing my buddies who would call in. Like, I would have them coming through my laptop speakers on OBS, and I was capturing them, and I would like barely edit it and just put it on a WordPress website that I made, and it was like part of this network that my friends were running, and it was so amateur and just terrible, but it was fun. It was like, hey, once a week or once every other week or so, my friends and I will just get together and talk about video games and just hang out, and it'll sound like a cohesive product, and I can actually sound like I can say, hey, I did this, I made this. So it was nice, and that was like, it gave me the podcasting bug, like, yeah, I want to keep doing this. And so a few years after that, I'd been doing that for a little while, and a friend of mine like showed me this Reddit post about like another podcast that was looking for hosts. It was, hey, we're an established show, we've been running for a little while now, we're based in New York, we have a system, we use good equipment, yada yada, and we need co-hosts. And I was like, shit, yeah. So I kind of put myself out for that, and that was a show I was involved with for a while called Press Any Key Podcast. It was a very straightforward, just gaming industry news and kind of commentary sort of show. And again, that was a good time. Like, it was a little amateurish, but it was definitely more put together than what I was doing on my own. So I felt like I was taking a big step up, like, oh yeah, this is the real thing, these are the big leagues. I didn't know any better, but it was nice though. And so that was another like kind of climbing the ladder of skill and competency and kind of developing a voice and all that. So that was nice. And then that sort of fizzled out. I kind of just drifted away. I don't know how it happened, but like we just kind of stopped hanging out, and that happened.
Yeah, sometimes it happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. Or also the people you podcast with are weird control freaks. You don't like podcasting with them anymore, but that can happen too. I'm not not necessarily saying that is what happened, but it can happen.
Yeah.
But no, like what eventually came out of that was I was kind of getting away from podcasting for a few years, and then another friend of mine said, hey man, I'm doing this thing called Lore Party, and Lore Party is the podcast I'm with now. And a buddy of mine from college, he actually was a co-host with them, and he brought me into it, sort of vouched for me, like, hey, we want a new co-host, here he is. And so I joined Lore Party, I want to say around 2019, I think, like that same year. And it was day and night difference. Like I felt like immediately, like, this is way more serious, this is way more put together and buttoned up, and like just this, we have our shit together here. This is a real operation of, we script our episodes very thoroughly. We have like, we have it down to a T. Like, what are we trying to say here? And we I bought my first good microphone around that time too. That's actually this one right here. It's a AT2020. I was like, this is like a good podcast microphone, but also maybe I can use it for voice acting eventually. So I was like thinking ahead, and that was another chapter where I was like, okay, this is good. And I'm still working with those guys today. They're like some of my best friends in the world. Like we're like really close now, and we love working together. And we're on like season 9, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Right now. Yeah, it's crazy. And then there's been a couple of spin-off shows that Lore Party's done. Like our main show is getting into the lore, the universes and characters and storytelling of video games that we really just kind of picking apart details we think are interesting, and we have like a thesis statement of each episode of like what we're trying to explore and get at. But we also have a spin-off show about The Witcher. It's called Winds Howling. It's kind of like a companion podcast for the Netflix show.
Oh, okay.
Very neat. So if you're like watching the Netflix show and you don't really know much about The Witcher lore and background, perfect primer for you. You can watch the show, listen to Winds Howling, and get like some context and like some analysis of what happened in the show, which is really exciting. But on top of that, we also have a spinoff about Dune, the Frank Herbert Dune universe, called Gom Jabbar. And Gom Jabbar is blowing up. Like, people love Gom Jabbar. Like it's kind of crazy how popular it got overnight, basically. But Abu and Leo are the hosts of Gom Jabbar, and they are gigantic Dune nerds. Like they love this shit. They're all about it, and it comes across in the content they put out. It's like very, very detailed, very thorough, and they love the material. And the movie coming out very soon. They actually saw, yeah, they actually somehow got advanced tickets. They saw the Dune movie like this past weekend, I think.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Wow.
and they actually recorded like their raw immediate thoughts after coming out of the theater. Like they literally just stood on the sidewalk and recorded on their phone like, oh my god, that was amazing. So like you can hear that if you look. But yeah, Gom Jabbar, Winds Howling, and the main Lore Party show. It's all on loreparty.com. You can find more about it there. And I'm just very happy to be a part of it. It's been a great experience. And yeah, no, it's I'm looking forward. We also stream occasionally on Twitch. We're trying to stream more often. We twitch.tv/loreparty. And yeah, no, it's something I'm glad to be a part of for sure.
Are you guys actually thinking of recording the podcast while you're on Twitch, or?
That's actually something we haven't thought of.
Okay.
Yeah, the Twitch and the episodes are kind of separated in terms of like the episode content is very very script driven, so like it makes sense to just sit down in a Discord room and just record it that way.
Gotcha.
But like, yeah, no, that's I think lore discussions while we're streaming a game would be interesting. Like that's something we might actually think about. Like,
absolutely, people do love their lore.
True.
Yeah.
I almost think like if we're gonna stream a game and we've recently done an episode about it, we can like kind of talk about that episode, follow up on it, and like just chill out. Yeah, it'd be like almost like a more relaxed format of the normal show. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. So you went from college radio into long period of time podcasting, multiple podcasts. So moving into voice acting, what was really the thing you wanted to do in voice acting that all the other stuff, was there a scratch that wasn't getting itched, or what did you want to do in voice acting?
Good question.
Very good question. Yeah, it's something I've actually thought about a little bit of like what made me want to be a voice actor, and it's hard to. I don't know if I really have one single answer. I think, yeah, it's the way you put it though. I like that, like because podcasting did scratch one certain itch of just I wanted to put something out in the world. I just wanted to talk about things, and like I like talking, so that was like an outlet for that. But I think voice acting kind of engages a different part of the brain where it's like you can really play with something, can be more expressive. It's more it's a more creative pursuit, I think, or at least a creative pursuit of another kind. So yeah, I think what I wanted to accomplish with it is just, I wanted to kind of escape myself a little bit. I wanted to sink into some different shoes and portray different roles that weren't just me talking about something. So yeah, it's a good question. I think I think the games I was playing at the time were also a big motivator too. Like, when I was getting into podcasting, I was also starting to play more and more story-driven games that it was getting ridiculous. Like they were getting out of control. Like I think there was a story-driven game renaissance happening around that time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Almost still continuing. Like I was a big fan of the Uncharted series back then. Last of Us came out around that time, and so I was like getting to understand that like games are changing. Like they are getting to the point of Hollywood caliber acting and like storytelling in these games, and that would make me aware like there's acting opportunities here in this medium that even if I never get close to being in games like this, I would love to take that shot and just see if I'm able to do it. So yeah, I think there were a lot of factors in terms of my day job, my podcasting hobby, my sort of background in childhood and performance and just being the drama club kid. A lot of things just added up over time and motivated me. Like you should look into this acting thing.
So definitely the mix of transferable skills and the drive to do something new.
Definitely, yeah. There were a lot of things going on in my fizzling around in my brain to make that happen. So
Is there like a particular role that you can get or that you want to get that's going to be like, this is it? I mean, even it doesn't have to be like specific this character. Is there like a particular like type? Are you the villain type? Are you the hero type? Are you kind of like...
I'm honestly of the mindset of I will play anything anyone tells me that I'm going to play. Like
Gotcha.
I really don't like put myself into a type. I'm not. It's almost like I'll do whatever anyone wants me to do. I'll try whatever I'm able to try, and I'll just try and have a good time with it. And just try and keep an open mind. Obviously, I think I do naturally fall into a powerful category of characters where it's like forceful, commanding. I think those are voices that come easily to me, and they're fun for me to do. I don't have to think too hard about them. Like I was actually, I was told recently that like characters that challenge the audience or other characters like are forceful. Like I have a quality to my voice and my voice placement that make it easy to like just be aggressive or like villainous or even like a hard-edged hero, things like that. They come easily to me. But like as far as what I keep in mind as goals, I just love any kind of character that I can sink into and have fun with. So whether that's a really quirky comic relief type good guy or just totally out of bounds villain, like it's all fun to me. So yeah, whatever I get a chance to do, I will do. I'm not picky.
Yeah, so would you say you're wanting to kind of stretch your range?
Yeah.
Do some stuff that you're very unfamiliar with?
Sure. Yeah, range is an interesting thing. Like, I feel like every actor has what I would call maybe not even a range. It's more like a window. Like you have kind of like an upper limit to your range and a lower limit to your range. And like somewhere in between is like things that you can do either very easily or you can do convincingly if you try at them. So it's like my range is to the point, or my window is like, I've always struggled with the higher voices, like sounding younger, like little kids or like just higher pitched voices. It's hard for me, but like I can get into a head voice if I really try to, but it's like, it's a strain. It's hard to keep that throughout a scene or throughout a read. So it's like, that's in my window, but it's tougher. And then like you get into, I'm not going to sound like a little girl ever, or like, I'm not going to, there's certain things I'm just never going to sound like. And it's just, if it's in your window, you can reach for it. If it's just outside your window, you can, stretch your range as much as you can and try and get there. But it's also like, know where your wheelhouse is and, don't be afraid to develop within that window is, I guess, how I usually look at it.
Nice. True.
Yeah. It's a thing I've thought about a lot in the sense that we're not really going to get a Mel Blanc again. The industry doesn't really need the man of 1,000 voices because there's 1,000 voice actors who can do one voice each instead.
Exactly.
So, knowing what you can comfortably do is kind of a thing that people are looking for, I think.
Yeah. That's so true. Like, you don't ever want to like think, I can't do this one particular voice. That means I'm not versatile enough. It's like, no, you're plenty versatile. You can be very versatile in a window, and like, it's kind of like going tall instead of wide, if that makes any sense. It's like, you have that window. You can go anywhere in, like, think 3D, not 2D. Like, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it's like, don't kill yourself trying to do that one particular cartoonish voice that you heard once. It's like, it's not worth it. Just develop what your voice allows you to do, and you'll be surprised what you can get out of that.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Mel Blanc, because I was just thinking about that. I don't know if you guys have been watching like Marvel What If.
Yes.
Great series. There's this one gentleman that keeps getting reused over and over again, who apparently is like a master at doing all of these different voices. Ross Marquand.
I know him.
Walking Dead dude, the dude with the metal hand. He stepped in to do Red Skull for Infinity War. And he's been stepping into all of these different roles in What If and is just killing it. So there is room for those people that can do a lot with, just their own voice. It's just they're kind of hiding in the shadows nowadays because they're getting used everywhere.
Yeah. No, Ross Marquand is 1 in a million type of guy. Like his what he can recreate is unbelievable. He has those videos Like you can find him on YouTube. Like, oh, here's Ross Marcon with like all these impressions. Like he'll do just insanely accurate impressions. And yeah, I think he was in Invincible too. He did like the voices of like 3 or 4 different characters in the same scene or episode. Like, and they're all very different. Like he can go all over the place. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so nice to see that talent. And it's getting shown now, which is super, super important when it comes to this, particular profession. It's good to see those stars, and it's good to see that they're getting treated well. So super important.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me ask you on a more serious note, because I know this show, we've talked a lot about imposter syndrome or being down on yourself. Have you experienced in either your podcasting side or your voiceover side anything like that? And generally, what can you do to get yourself out of it?
So, yeah, that's such an important thing for anyone in a performance industry to know. And I see it all the time in voice acting, the voice acting world. Like that's such an important topic. And yeah, I mean, interesting question. When it comes to podcasting, I don't really ever get insecure about what I do in podcasting, because I feel pretty confident, just mostly because I feel like I'm on such a good team, and I'm part of a really strong network that I don't ever really have to feel like I'm not doing something right, or like I don't ever really feel threatened by other podcasts, because like I like what we do. What we do is solid, and there's nothing to be ashamed of with it. So like, yeah, competition barely even enters my mind when it comes to podcasting. I'm pretty like confident in it. It's like, it is what it is. I don't have to worry about it. Voice acting is different though. Like it does feel a lot more personal. Like when I got into voice acting, I think I struggled with that a lot early on, of just, I think of it less in terms of imposter syndrome and more in terms of comparison syndrome. Like I know the two go hand in hand. It's like, if you keep comparing yourself to everyone else, you'll drive yourself crazy. It's that very important lesson I learned at some point. I'm still kind of learning it. It's just that other people's success does not mean you failed. Like if someone else has succeeded, that does not mean you failed. And everyone has their own path. That's something everyone has to learn. And it's one thing to hear it, it's another thing to really understand it and take it on board. But you just have to be patient with yourself over time and know that your path won't look like everyone's, and what someone else is doing with their career should not dictate what you should do with yours. So it's like, just imposter syndrome's weird, because it's like you'll start to tell yourself, and you'll start to think like, I'm not doing A, B, and C, so I'm not doing it right, or I'm not doing A, B, and C, so I don't belong here. It's just really, as long as you have a passion for performing, and you're willing to do the work, and you're willing to be patient with yourself, and just not expect magical favors to fall into your lap, I think as long as you understand all of that, you're right where you belong. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing if you just are willing to show up, perform, do the work, keep learning. I think that's another thing. You got to be humble. You got to know that you're never really done learning. You got to know that you're going to keep developing and keep just improving. That's the goal, at least.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just, you should never feel like you're an imposter, as long as you you're willing to keep expanding. You're willing to have an open mind and do the work. That's really all it takes. It's patience is huge too, man. Like I think the comparison thing gets really bad when you feel like you're not getting roles, you're not going the places you wanted to get, or like your voice doesn't sound like someone else's. Like if you hear someone's demo and you think, oh my God, you can do that voice better than I can. What am I even doing? It's like, none of that should enter your mind. It's just, it's just worry about yourself is what it comes down to. That's what I would say is the main takeaway. Just focus on yourself. You know what? Like, I know it's easy to look out and compare yourself to everyone else and keep up with the Kardashians and watch your neighbor. It's like, oh, what's everyone else doing? Like, it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It's nice to like keep up with people and network and like make friends with people and have that peer-to-peer relationship and learn from each other wherever you can. But there's a limit to it. Like the limit is if it starts to, affect your journey and like trip you up, and like you start worrying about other people more than about yourself and your own journey and your own development, that's when you've lost your priorities. You've kind of gotten off the track. So it's like, worry about yourself first and foremost. That's why I don't engage on voice acting Twitter as much as I could. I show up, I wave here and there. I'm like, oh hey, I'm here, but like I'm not an active presence there. I don't like go out of my way to like make a splash or, you know, be a celebrity among that circle. It's just like I would just rather just audition and just do my shit like quietly. I'm like very much a quiet nose to the grindstone, just mind my own business type of guy. So
Gotcha.
that's what works for me. If other actors get fulfillment out of, you know, sort of that symbiotic, like, you know, learning from others actively and, you know, just following someone else's career and trying to keep up with them. If that's what motivates you, I'm not, you know, who am I to say that's wrong? But like for me, it's just worry about yourself, be humble, you know, keep learning and put in the work. That's what it is. That's what it's all about for me.
Gotcha.
That's how you head off imposter syndrome and keep it from being a factor in your work, as far as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this may actually be the same answer to my question, but if you were to go back to 2011, right before you started all this journey, what would you tell yourself?
Oh man, that's a good question. You know, I've thought about, like, I've often thought to myself, I really wish I'd gotten started sooner. I really wish I, you know, just used my youthful energy while I had it and just, you know, launched myself off in this direction early. And if I did meet my 21-year-old self, went back 10 years, I'd probably say, like, start thinking about it, you know, get serious about it. Like, here's what you can do. Use your time wisely. Who knows where you could end up. But at the same time, it's like, I was just in a different place back then. My life was very different back then. So it's like, on one hand, it'd be nice if I'd gotten started sooner. But on the other hand, I got started when I was able to, and when I was ready to, and when I was in a position to get off on the right foot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, I had an established career. I had a day job that paid the bills. I never had to really worry about money. You know, I wasn't struggling, you know, just day to day. And then on top of that, struggling to be a voice actor. That's too much struggle. You know, you can only struggle so much. Like, you got to limit how much struggle you're doing at any given time. So it's like, I got into voice acting at a time when I was stable. I had some, you know, I had the free time, I had the motivation, I had, you know, money to buy equipment, I could pay a coach. I was in a place to do it and do it effectively and, like, actually put myself into it. I think if I'd gone back in time and said to my 21-year-old self, be a voice actor, like, I don't know what, I wouldn't know how to even, like, juggle my life, and I would have been way more immature and insecure back then. And, like, I don't even know if I'd be equipped to, like, get feedback from a coach or a director. Like, I don't know if I would have been, like, secured myself enough to have that humility and have that, you know, attitude of just do the work and keep learning. I don't know if I would have been able to do any of that, because I was such a dipshit back then. I was a dumb kid. You know, I didn't know how to manage my time. I didn't know how to, like, deal with people. So, like, having a decade of just being a working stiff in the, you know, my day job, building a career as, like, a writer editor in that kind of industry, I learned, you know, some valuable lessons of time management and how to be a professional. God, professionalism is so important too. I just, you know, to my fellow voice actors, like, you gotta be a professional about all this. Like, know how to deal with people, know how to deal with rejection. That's another huge one. Just, like, move on. Like, it's, you know, don't take things so, you know, have a thick skin, really is how you have to look at it. But I just don't know if I would have been equipped for any of that back then. So it's an interesting perspective. Like, yeah, it'd be nice if I had, like, more time to develop this career and develop this hobby and turn it into a career. But at the same time, I might not have been really in the place to do it back then. So
yeah, that's always the kicker of these questions. Like, young you has the energy and the health, but old you has the
resources,
life experience.
Yeah, the wisdom, the resources, the stability. Like, yeah, it's a toss up. You know, there's that's why it's like, there's no wrong way to do it. You know, I have peers, I have, like, you know, colleagues, people I've, like, worked with and interacted with. They're, like, fresh out of college and they're just going all in on acting. Like, I'm, you know, here's my, you know, they're just really building up the the voice acting career like right out of the gate, right out of college, like I didn't do. So like that's not the wrong way to do it. That's a perfectly valid way to do it. It's just not the way I did it. So like there's no wrong answer. It's just, you know, whatever you're able to do in life, for you, it's on to you. You know, you have to make that decision yourself, I guess.
Which is why I think the right answer to Zamoody's question is what you say to your younger self is hold still, and then you knock them out, and then you transplant your brain into their body. So you have the experience and the energy, and you take it from there.
But you don't have the resources though. But yeah, I see what you're saying there, Birnam.
I come back in time with a suitcase full of cash though, and take all my money out of the bank and then go back in time.
Yeah, this show has always been a huge proponent about. It started off as a hobby. Make sure you can pay your bills. Do your 9 to 5 first and foremost. Do your family responsibilities first and foremost, and then build your foundation. And when you get more time, start working on it and start sending out those auditions.
Right.
It's interesting that you talk about. I won't say rejection because I don't like using the word rejection. You just didn't get picked for your interpretation of that character. So nobody technically ever really says no, except for very few circumstances that Eldurrino will attest to. And that I've seen too. But I mean, when it comes to feedback, so it is the coach's feedback as hurtful. I don't want to say hurtful, but is it as impactful as it would be from somebody that you're auditioning from?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I the way I see it, like a coach's feedback to me feels safe because it's like I'm in a place right now where this is practice. This is like I'm working with you, and feedback is good because I'm trying to build a skill. I'm trying to develop an instinct here, and this is a constructive way where that's happening. Feedback from like a directed session, or like someone you're like a live audition, like you're auditioning for a director live. That's way more stressful because like that's not just constructive. We're working on it together. This is a safe, constructive place kind of feedback. That's like if you don't nail this, you don't get this job type of feedback. That's like how it feels. That might not be how it's actually is, but that's how it feels. It comes across as okay. I'm going to give you a note here and. Try it again this way. And that's what you hear. But in the back of your mind, you hear, get it right this time, or you're out of here. And like, or you'll blow it. So yeah, they are very different types of pressure. Like, from your coach, it's like, oh, I trust you. I trust your knowledge and I'm going to try and do what you say. But a director, it's like, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I apologize. I'll do it right this time. I swear. Like that's kind of the difference to me, at least. I mean, I haven't done a ton of directed sessions or live auditions. I've only done a few, so maybe I'm speaking from inexperience. But yeah, that's how it feels.
That's perfectly fine. That's what we want, these perspectives when it comes to this stuff, because we want to hear all the different sides of it.
But no, I do love what you said, Zamoody, about just you didn't get rejected, you just didn't get picked. There's a very important difference there. I actually have never heard it put that way, and but I 100% agree. It's like you didn't get a yes. That's not the same as you were told no. Like you just didn't get the yes. That's all that happened. So that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, you will run into the very, very overstressed, moody director that will literally tell you how if he thought you were awful or anything else. Those you just write off. You don't worry about. But yeah, for the most part, it's just like you put out your character. This is what you thought it was like. They didn't like it. They went a different direction. It's no big deal. Nobody is going to say that was terrible. Don't do it that way, or at least they shouldn't for the most part.
Yeah.
So
I would certainly say.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, please.
I would certainly say that in like when it comes to being coached, I don't have any experience necessarily with a coach, but I can definitely see that would be the safest option. It's a mentor figure. It's someone you look up to, someone who is kind of taking you under their wing. You definitely are always going to accept feedback from them. When it comes to directed sessions, though, I feel like those are almost just as safe. In that, like, I've only had one directed session voice acting, but I've had 4 or 5 years of on-stage experience with directors before, and each time, like, the director knew the role that he was putting me in, and he knew that I could do it. I just had to figure out how to communicate with him and get the performance that he was looking for. And I think that's always the case with other directors as well. It's just communicating with them, saying, do you want me to try it like this? What don't you like about that? You know, it's just working with them hand in hand as much as you possibly can. So I feel like that's a bit of a safer option as well, just because you can really communicate with them and collaborate to get the best possible performance. Versus, like if you're in a live audition scenario, it's you got your one shot, and if you don't get it, then you don't get it. You know, that's a lot riskier.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like when you have a directed session, that means like usually you already have the job. You've been given the role. You've been confirmed like this is your character. So yeah, you normally would feel a little safer with some direction. Like, okay, well, let's try it this way. But I actually had a directed session not long ago for a visual novel that just came out. It was like I was just given this role. I didn't even have to audition for it. So when I was in the session with the director, I thought like, well, I feel safe. Like, you know, I'm like in this, like I have this spot, but you know, there's always that like probably irrational fear of like, oh, if I'm like really bad in this session, they might even recast me. Maybe, who knows? Like, but that's just kind of like my paranoia of like going to the worst possible conclusion, probably.
Yeah,
but yeah, like I think Eldurrino, you bring up like collaboration, like, you know, communicating with a director or a mentor of any kind. Like I think that's another really huge skill as an actor you have to have, is just to be easy to direct, be flexible, be like, you know, open to, you know, someone else's interpretation of a script or a character that you didn't think of. Like, you know, don't dig your heels in and say, no, this is the right way. Like, you gotta be flexible. You gotta be easy to direct. That's very important, because that'll build your reputation for that. So
yeah,
I think what what a coach and a director both have in common is that you both have the same objective, which is to get the best performance out of you that you can get. With auditions, that's not the casting director's objective. The casting director's objective is to find the right person for the role. So that's where the anxiety comes in. You're not on the same page about what you're trying to do.
Right.
So I think you're about the third or fourth guest that we've had, and actually that's taken up the coach. So let me ask you this: when you're looking for a coach, what is it that makes you say yes to that particular person?
So when I met my first coach, I think I was pretty much ready to work with whoever offered to work with me. I wasn't super picky because I wasn't very knowledgeable. But I did look at, like, I wanted to make sure I was not getting scammed or anything. Obviously, I looked at, like, you know, made sure he was legit. And like, you know, I looked at the clients he's had over the years, like sort of what kind of environment he works in. I saw like pictures of his studio and his equipment, and I'm like, okay, this guy looks like the real deal. He looks like he has a lot of he's trained a lot of other students who say they had a good experience. So like, you know, I did what research I could. But you know, for me, it was like, there are ways to get started without coaching. Like, you can like get to a point where you're confident and able to audition for things without paying for a coach. Like, there are ways to do that. But just for me, like, I felt way safer, you know, that felt like a better use of my time. And I, you know, just needed that direction. So I'm not even going to say like you need a coach to get started. Like, I'm not saying that. It's just, that was the easiest way for me to get started. But yeah, like once I worked with with Ron, my first coach, after that, I was like a little bit more knowledgeable. Like, okay, well, there's the genres, and like, you know, coaches can specify or kind of specialize in different areas of the industry, and they have different areas of focus. So for my sake, like, or sorry, from my perspective, what I would say, when you're looking for a coach, you just want to look at what jobs they've had, like what's their experience, what bookings do they have, what genres do they work in the most, and compare that with what are you most interested in. Like, if you want to be a commercial actor, you'll want to find a coach who specializes in commercials. Like, they know the industry today, they knew it yesterday, they'll continue to know it tomorrow. They're in it. They are knowledgeable, and they have real world experience to apply to your training. That's what you want to look for. It's, you know, if you want to be in video games, get a coach, or find, you know, look for coaches who've been in video games. It's relatively simple, but it's like, I think to pick a coach well, to pick the right coach for you, you just have to know your goals. You have to know what you want to accomplish, and have an idea of what you want to work on. Like, you know, don't just go into it blind. Or you can do this, but I wouldn't recommend it. You know, you can go into it blind like, hi, new coach, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'd like you to just sort of throw me in the pool and see what I need to see how well I swim. Like, I think what I would recommend is like, know what you want to work on specifically. Like, do you want to develop your range better? Do you want to work on like, the variety of voices you can do? Do you want to work on commercial tactics, like soft sell tactics, like, convincing reads? Like, you just have some understanding of where you want to go in your skill set, and shop around for coaches accordingly. That's what my advice would be.
Let me ask you another question. And again, I'm not going to say specifically, but in a general topic, what is your first session with a coach like?
Good question. Haven't had a first session in a while. I guess it's like, normally it'll be getting to know each other a little bit, just like, hey, what have you done so far? What's your experience level like? What kind of equipment do you have? Like, they'll ask you things like, what are you working with? What's your space like? I think a lot of them will start off with, how's your recording space? Is it treated well? Because that's more important than anything. It's more important than your mic. It's more important than your interface, computer, even your anything else. So like, they'll get to know you and where you're at so that they can meet you where you're at. What you'll want to do is get to know, like, do you want to give me like a practice monologue? Like, I think a lot of it will come out. I think a lot of it will start with practice reads, and they'll just kind of get a gauge for your skill set, what you need to work on, where you're at, what you're good at, what you're not so good at. So a lot of it's just kind of testing the waters at first. That's what early coaching sessions usually are, is just finding out your strengths, your weaknesses, and then trying to align. If you're working with a coach long term, if you're going to have more than one session with them, they will try to align with like, okay, here's where you want to go and where you want to end up eventually. Here's how we get you there. So
Gotcha.
That's my experience.
Cool.
Generally.
It's very, very good. Couple more questions for you. Just when it comes to the pay to play sites, voices.com, voices123, you familiar with either of them?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
What's your opinion? What do you think of the model, and B, the concept?
Yeah. I'm currently on voices.com. I am subscribed to it. I've looked at 123 a little bit, but I haven't joined it. I think my take on it is like, they're a little bit of a necessary evil, I guess, is how I would put it. And like, let me explain that, because it's like, there are public casting calls that almost anyone can get to. They're very open, and they attract a lot of attention. That's like kind of the Twitter crowd, or like the free sites, like, casting call or whatever. But the pay to plays, they're like not necessarily a higher level. They're just a different arena where it's like a little bit more exclusive. So you're not competing against quite as many people maybe, but it's also a different audience of like, these are usually professional clients and the budgets are bigger. So it's like, you're kind of you're paying into, for VDC at least, which is what I'm on, you're buying into this idea that you're going to pay a website ahead of time, and what you're getting in return is an opportunity to try out for professional jobs that pay well, that are not open to the general public. So you're not going to be swarmed by competition. You're still going to have a lot of competition, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be literally the entire world. Anyone who has this link can click on it and audition for it. So that's the trade-off, is, you have that subscription, the subscription cost up front, but what you get in return is the opportunity to grind out auditions for jobs that have decent budgets, and you won't be one among literally thousands of auditions usually. So it's not ideal, it's like, it is what it is. Like, there's an upside to it and downside to it. So it's kind of like, you just have to weigh the pros and cons yourself when you're looking at pay to play sites. I know that there's a lot of pessimism about them, especially voices.com. Like, they take like a hefty cut out of whatever you make. Like, even if
20%, by the way, but
20%, that's not nothing, especially if like a higher budget job. So full transparency, I actually haven't gotten work through VDC yet. I've auditioned a bit. I think I got shortlisted for one job a while back, but like, I haven't actually made any money on it yet. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I've heard a lot of talk about like, oh, they take a cut and all this yada yada. It's like, it limits you. And like, yeah, there's a lot that you need to consider when it comes to voices.com or just pay to play in general. There's also that like risk, I guess, I've heard of like, companies basically scamming by like, having you audition and then they'll just use your audition for whatever they're doing and not pay you. Things like that.
Yeah.
So there are hazards to look out for. There are things to consider, but it's like if you're really at the stage where I'm kind of at, where I'm just really trying to build a basis for myself and build bookings and build a resume, really just get like jobs under my belt.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I need to be, is like I need to just grind out auditions and get some work, whether it, 20% cut notwithstanding, I just need to have those jobs and have that experience. And so, yeah, they're not for everybody. It's literally like, if I can be clear about one thing, it's this. It's this. You don't need to be on pay-to-play sites to succeed. They're just one way to get there. It's not like this is a level you have to go through. If it doesn't work out for you, it doesn't work out for you. If like the subscription and the 20% cut, they just don't jive with you, no problem. It's not like you're doing anything wrong by skipping the pay-to-play sort of method. That's not how it works. So like, they're one avenue among many. They're not a right way to do it, not a wrong way to do it. They're just something you have to think about before you commit to.
Absolutely. And just so people are aware of, I've submitted 482 auditions and I've been hired right now 8 times. My booking ratio is somewhere in like 90-1. So don't get discouraged.
Right. It's a numbers game for sure. You got to just really throw a lot at the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to just keep throwing to see what sticks on the wall. My last question for me, and I'll check with the panel and everybody else here in a second. And I have a feeling I know which way the answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you like your own voice?
I actually do. I'll be honest. I like the way I sound. And that wasn't always the case, though. I know I hear a lot of people say, I'm a voice actor, but I can't stand my voice. How weird is that? Like, I get it. Like, that's not like a weird thing to experience. I remember, early on, like before I was like a performer, really serious about performing, like I remember hearing recordings of myself. Like if I would hear myself recorded, played back to me, I'd be like, oh my God, that's disgusting. But like now that I have some like the training and some experience, like if I just hear myself talking casually, I still, listening to my own podcast, I'm like, I'm not crazy about this. But like if I hear myself in a project, I'm like, hey, that sounds pretty good. Like if I hear myself acting at this point, I'm like, all right, that was good. That was not bad. And it's like, to be clear, I've had confidence issues like my whole life. Just self-image, just self-worth. Like that's always been a struggle for me. Like liking myself is not always easy. So like that one thing I let myself have, the one kind of like treat I give myself is liking my voice when I hear like myself perform. And it's like, yeah, no, I like that. I like that about myself. And just it takes getting used to too. If you're just not used to hearing, like, I think, early on voice actors starting out, they'll like do auditions and they'll play them back while they edit them or submit them or whatever. And they'll go, oh God, that's gross. I can't stand my own voice. It's literally just, I think it's an exposure thing. Like the more you expose yourself to it, you just get used to it. You get used to hearing yourself. You train yourself to perform a certain way that sounds pleasing to the ear, even yours. And I think eventually it gets better maybe, but yeah, long story to answer your question. Yeah, I do like my voice generally.
And for the record, I that was kind of the direction I thought you would go. I mean, after 10 years in podcasting, I figured, yeah, you'd have to fall in that one.
You kind of have to at some point, or you'll just drive yourself crazy.
All right,
100%. Any last questions from the panel before we take off?
Super quick question: which video game franchise would be your dream job as a voice actor?
Oh man, good question. I'd say this is like a casual answer. I'm not like super committed to this, but something that does come to mind is it would be really cool to be in an Elder Scrolls game at some point, because I think Elder Scrolls has that element to it where an actor can really stretch his or her or their wings like really well. I think Elder Scrolls gives you that, you can be a human, you can be an Imperial or a Breton and like, have like a certain affectation in that direction, or you can be an orc and really have fun with it and like, or be a dark elf and just, it's there's so much variety and like chances to be something really interesting, chances to be an interesting character that Elder Scrolls would be really fun to be a part of. I'll go with that.
That's a good question. Yes. Thank you,
yeah,
Birnam.
good question for sure.
Well, Conrad, it was a ton of fun to have you on. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of the valuable information, everything that you've given us. So thanks for coming on board.
This was a blast. Thanks so much for having me. I had a great time.
Next week, I think we will be on the 17th. I'll be, dashing right out the door right after the show. Like I said, we're going to go out on vacation afterwards. I believe, Eldurrino, it's your turn for an intro.
It is not.
Damn it! Is it my turn?
It is our new co-host turn. Our new co-host Misty will be joining us next week, and she has agreed to do her very first intro on the very first day that she hosts. So that'll be fun.
Awesome. I don't have to worry about doing it while I'm on vacation. So yay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. ColdReadthePodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, if you have any topic ideas, if you want us to listen to your audition, just go ahead and email us ColdReadthePodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much, Conrad, for being here. Appreciate you. Birnam, thanks so much for stepping in. Eldurrino, I hope you feel better, my friend. I appreciate it. Keep those auditions going, and we will all see you next time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Drink water.
There it is.